In this video, I'm going to try and run 10K in 3D printed running shoes. One of the main benefits of 3D printing as a manufacturing method is the ability to customize each part as you produce it. For this one, I'm going to scan my foot to make the upper and the insole geometry, as well as scanning a running shoe to create the midsole and the outsole. I'm going to bring all those scans together in Mesh Mixer, and then we're going to create a final running shoe to hopefully run 10K on. This video is sponsored by PCBWay. More about them later. Now initially I wanted to design my own midsole and outsole, but my modeling skills aren't quite there, so let's copy Nike's homework and scan their shoe. I'm using the RevoPoint Morocco Pro for this. I like it because it's a standalone unit, but I'm not sure that I could recommend it to others. It's good for this YouTube stuff, but I'm not sure I would want to use it in a professional setting. It's also very expensive for what you get. But what I can definitely recommend is getting your hands on some scanning spray. I've got this scanning spray from A-Sub that will disappear after 4 hours. So you spray it on your part, it leaves a thin white film across your entire part and makes it really easy for the scanner to pick up the geometry of your part. You can see that there's some gaps in the bottom of the shoe where the darker parts are, and so the spray is just meant to eliminate that. And these sprays also come in a couple different flavors. You have a 4-hour, a 12 to 24 hour, and then a permanent, and the permanent just means that you have to wash it off at the end. So the scanning spray did its job, and now we can see those black pads have actually been captured by the scanner. And now we can take these over to the computer and do some post-processing along with the other scans that we took. So here we can see the top of my foot, the scan that I used for the upper that's been fully post-processed. And then we have the bottom that I used for the insole. And here's the final shoe scan, pretty clean. I like the results that came out of this. And I exported that into Mesh Mixer. And again, we can take a look at some of the raw scan files. Pretty messy. We'll apply a one-click edit just for you to see what that looks like. And this is going to take up to 3 minutes, so it takes a little bit of time for it to process the models. And here we can see the results of the one-click editing. Actually looks pretty good. And from here I could go back and just delete what I don't want. So I could get rid of the salt box that I had in frame. So I brought the scan of the shoe and then the bottom of my foot into Mesh Mixer to create the bottom of the shoe, followed by the top of my foot to create the upper. And then I solidified each scan and brought them into Fusion 360 to do the rest of the editing. From here, I was able to subtract the foot portion from the shoe portion to create the indent of my foot in the midsole. And following that, I was able to attach the upper and also make a scaled down version of the upper to subtract and create the wall thickness. I couldn't do a shell because of the complex geometry, and every time I tried to do a shell, Fusion would just bug out and crash. I did a few more edits just to fill some gaps in Fusion 360, and then I sent it over to Mesh Mixer to smooth everything out, followed by sending this over to Bambu Studios and then to the 3D printer. I printed this in TPU 95A, and if you haven't used this material before, I really suggest you give it a try because it is really cool. If all you've printed in is PLA or PETG, it's really funky to have a print that's this malleable and bends the way that this print bends. It sticks really well to the PEI textured plate, and the supports weren't as hard to remove as I thought they would be. So my first real look at this thing, I don't think my foot's going to slide in there. My contingency plan is to just cut a slot. Well, that's too tight, but it's pretty close. Definitely have to open up the
toe box, like my toes are real crammed in here.
So in the mesh mixer software, I pulled this portion in too much by accident. So I actually lost a lot of my toe space. And that meant that I went back in and I reverted to a previous version where I hadn't made these smoothing adjustments. And that led me to this design here, where I also extended the toe box because I really wanted to make sure that this would fit. I didn't want to waste a bunch of other material, so you can see where I straightened this out and basically just pulled these, sliced it, and then pulled these two parts away from each other and then filled it back in. And you can see it on the top here also, this little straight section. I added this slot in the middle for getting the shoe on and off, and then also tightening it up around my foot, and then also these eyelets for the shoelaces. This, I had a few issues printing. I ended up with a failure here, which was not too bad. It's about 4 or 5 hours in. Got a clogged nozzle, had to deal with that. This one was a little bit more heartbreaking. I think I was about 18 hours in and it failed right there. So I was able to do a test fit and my foot fit all the way in, and it felt relatively comfortable, so I just kept going and finally got 2 prints off after that both came out well. The issue I ran into here is that I ran out of TPU95A for this second shoe, which means I had to switch over to my spool of TPU95A HF, which is the high flow variant. And I could go in that direction from the regular TPU95A to the high flow variant, but I wouldn't have been able to go the other way around because the high flow you can print a lot faster, but this didn't get those benefits because I was just printing on a sliced version of the 95A. You can see a slight color difference between the two. I'm not sure if that'll be caught on camera, but it's right here that the transition was done. And I tried to put this on and I don't have quite the layer adhesion that I would have liked. I have a feeling that this is just going to fall apart once I try to run on it. But I'm going to lace these up. I've got some laces from a donor shoe and we're going to see how these fit. And these actually fit pretty good. Grab the other one. Kind of wild, kind of weird looking. I'll lace these up and then try and walk around. I definitely modeled the arches way too high, so these feel somewhat uncomfortable. I'm making contact with the arches more than anything else in these shoes. And I definitely extended the toe box by a little bit too much. I should have added less. I overcorrected, and so now there's a bit too much space in there. I should have stuck to the original design without the smoothing pre-mesh mixer, but not the weirdest looking things in the world. I do think I could run in these. It's just how far. And those arches would really start to kill my feet. So I think I need to do one last iteration before I actually run on these. I could probably run a 10K in these out of pure will, but my arches are going to be destroyed after that. So I think I need to reverse my extension on the toe box and smooth out the arches, print one last time, and then I can run in these. If you want to prototype your own projects but don't have your own 3D printer, you should check out the sponsor of this video, PCBWay. PCBWay is known for their PCB manufacturing capabilities, but they also have a wide range of 3D printing services available. Don't let your printer's material selection hold you back, because PCBWay is able to print in a variety of resins, nylon, PLA, ABS, PETG, TPU, polycarbonate, ASA, PEEK, aluminum, stainless steel, titanium, and tool steel. Yeah, you heard me right. They can 3D print metals like aluminum, stainless steel, titanium, and tool steel. So be sure to check out the link in the description And thanks again, PCBWay, for sponsoring this video.
All right, so these are the final version, I'm hoping. Made those changes that I talked about. Laced up, outside, ready to run. And that's the start. I'll check in at probably 1K, 5K, and whenever these things fail.
They felt pretty good at first, but boy was I in for a surprise.
All right, 1K check in. This portion feels really good. Bottoms feel good. Back of the heel feels awful on both feet. So I don't know if we're gonna make it through this whole thing.
So, needless to say, I've got some pretty gnarly blisters, and it only took 1 kilometer for that to happen. And so I need to go back to the drawing board and try again. Alright, so I've had some time to think about it. I made some redesigns. This is the shoe that destroyed my heel. It's just, what I think is happening is it's just way too stiff. There's no real flex. So when my foot tries to go forward, my heel's slipping out, and then it comes back down, and I'm just slamming back in, and I'm just destroying my heels. So I went from 15% infill to 10% infill, and I added these slots in the back. So now this is way squishier. Like, I got way more flex out of that. Everything, the whole thing at 10% is just way easier to compress. And I ran out of white, so I switched over to red. Had some failures here, clearly, but I finally have a second shoe, which means that I am ready to run again, or at least try and run again. And hopefully this time I can make it the whole 10K. The 10% infill variant feel way better on my feet and clearly have a lot more flex, which allow my foot to fully articulate. And instead of just going out and trying to run in these right away, I did a few house chores. I vacuumed the house in these just to get a feel for them and maybe break them in a little bit more than I did last time. All right, well, I'm trying again. Printing them out again. I have an extra sock in the heel. May or may not be cheating, but I guess I make the rules. It's my channel, but still gonna try and run 10K. Got the 2 different colors going on. Let's go try and do this again. Kilometers 1 through 3 were really good. I could run really normally, but 4 through 5, I started to feel the rubbing on the back of my heel there, and I could tell some blisters were forming. And so kilometers 5 through 10, I was definitely just running on my toes, or just the mid part of my foot. So it was just toe striking the whole way through and just grinding it out for those last 5 kilometers. All right, we did it. Well, I did it, but you know, you came along for the ride. There's my 10K in about 67 minutes. Just wanted to show that live. Ooh. And run. And I was all done in these guys right here. And I was able to run it despite the shoes, not because of the shoes. I still had a bunch of rubbing on the heels. I was basically running on my toes for the last 5K, or like the second half. And I'm really happy to get these off. But I like it as a proof of concept. And if Nike and Adidas and those guys aren't doing this on a daily basis just to iterate their designs, I think they're missing out, and they're really going to fall behind, because you could iterate a shoe every single day by 3D printing it, testing it, and then making some design changes, and then printing it again at the end of the day, and you'd come back in the next morning and you'd have a shoe ready for you. Which, I mean, Adidas is already doing the midsole, but I think fully 3D printed shoes are on their way. And at first they're going to be a bit of a gimmick. These are just a proof of concept. Like, they're definitely not as functional as my real shoes, but they held up and they let you test out the fit and the overall style, which is a win in my books. So I hope you like that one. Here's what the soles look like after 10K. Not bad at all, no real signs of wear, just discoloration from the grass and the gravel. Hope you like that one, and I'll see you in the next one.